Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer. I'm not out and about today. It's a bit of a miserable day out there, but that doesn't usually stop me. It's because I'm waiting in for a very important package, a new bit of kit that I've got for my studio for when I do my live shows, little mixing desk. But anyway, that's neither here or there, but that's why I'm in my kitchen today. And I thought I did a video about some of my books, and people were interested in recommendations or suggestions and things. And actually there are a couple of books that have been influencing me recently on my videos, and so I thought I'd tell you a little about those and where it's taking me. You know, books have that ability to change your mind, because as I said before, books are thoughts, aren't they? They're people's thoughts. So the first book I wanted to mention, and I have mentioned it in my videos before, The Theft of the Countryside by Marion Shield, or Shoard, maybe, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Written in the 80s, but it's still as important today as it was then. And really as a snapshot of the history after the war. You will have heard me talk many times, I'm sure, in recent days, how the farmland has, or rather the landscape has been dug up by farmers. Hedgerows have been taken out. Huge fields have been made as a result of smaller fields turning into larger fields, bigger machinery coming in, and the practice of farming on a sort of prairie scale, larger scale, more intensive farming, in order so that farmers have a chance to make a profit. And this has been going on since after the war, when there was a need. And in particular, you'll hear me battering on about the fact that the downs have been chopped up. And I've been there's another book that I haven't actually got here in front of me, Dave Bang's book about the South Downs over Brighton, and he talks in huge detail about the loss of habitat and the various small patches that we've got. I made a video, in fact yesterday as I record this, where I stumbled across a lovely bit of wild pasture with lots of wild plants, bees, butterflies, and it was so invigorating to see. But sadly you only have to take your eyes from that little area and you see the vast amount of the South Downs at this moment, as I'm making this in July, in lots of monoculture of pasture. And you'll know that I spoke to Lee Dallon from Strood Farm, and he was showing me around his farm and showing me what he, as a farmer, and perhaps other farmers, are doing to try and compensate for building, or rather growing, large crops in fields by putting some habitat back for the wildlife, so that you've got pollinators and you've got birds and you've got mammals all managing to sort of survive, and even putting back some hedges so that there is corridors. And that is really encouraging to see, and I applaud people like Lee, farmers who are doing exactly that sort of thing. So it's an interesting book, but we're not likely, it seems, unless something drastic happens, to stop this monoculture from spreading everywhere, as indeed it has. And you may remember that I interviewed a lovely couple who were showing me their hay meadow that they're growing, and actually they're going to allow me to have some seeds and try and plant some somewhere, and not quite sure where as yet, coming up on an idea for that, because we're losing these hay fields and these wildflowers, although some farmers are planting something. But here's another book, and I'm only a quarter of the way through this, but this is fantastic, and thank you to the person who recommended this to me. This is by Graham Harvey, who used to be a scriptwriter and advisor on BBC Radio 4's The Archers, an agricultural advisor. This book's called We Want Real Food. He's written a number of other books, and they're on their way to me, so I'm fascinated in this. What he says has even more gripped my small little brain, because he's reporting on the fact that the intensive farming, again, it goes back to this whole thing about the monoculture, and the way that we farm now is pulling out and ridding the soil of the minerals and the nutrients, which is essential for life. So plants are being sown and crops are being grown, but artificial fertilizers and additional supplements and mineral licks are being given to cattle and things to try and compensate for the lack of the minerals in the soil. And it seems that the message is that mixed farming, of crop rotation, of some of the traditional things that we used to do prior to the 1940s, once we changed after the Second World War, is what was successful in replenishing all the minerals. I mean, we've been, since the hunter-gatherers, since the beginning of Neolithic times, where fields were, or the woodland was opened up and crops were grown. So about 12,000 years ago, we have been farming, and successfully, and feeding ourselves. And it's only in one person's lifetime that it seems to me, and I'm learning all of this, you know, and I'm no expert. Please don't think I'm an expert. This is what I'm gleaning from what I've been reading, is that we've in this last 80 odd years, we've robbed the soil. We've changed the farming practices. And I gather there's only 50 or 60 harvests left before the soil is so depleted that there's no minerals or nutrition available in the soil, and it's a disaster. And mixed farming is a way, the traditional way, is a way of continually putting back in the natural way the minerals and nutrients. And Graham Harvey goes on to say, you know, if you look at the medical history of people since 80 years ago, more people are suffering from things like dementia and diabetes and a whole host of cancers that we weren't really having in the numbers that we had before. Okay, there were other issues that we had, of course, because science has progressed, and we've got penicillins and we've got various other things to help us. But essentially, if you put the minerals and nutrients into the ground, it's in the crops, so that if you feed animals on those crops, the meats or the dairy products you have, you're getting those minerals. If you're eating things like vegetables, they've got the minerals in them. It all seems a good thing, and it's improving our lives. But when you take them out and you put lots of chemicals in, or residual pesticides and herbicides on your food, none of that's really helping you either. So you quickly learn that actually the foodstuffs that you buy in supermarkets is devoid of minerals and devoid of nutrients. And actually, it doesn't matter that they look lovely and they've grown very rapidly and you've got them from all over the world and there they are. If they haven't got the goodness in them, there's no point eating them. So this is where I mean, but books can change your mind and make you think, because I'm now beginning to think that what I need to do, and if you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll maybe appreciate that I've my sister and I are trying to sell the house that my father, a little bungalow that my father had. It's been on the market for a long time, and if we can sell this with my little share of the money, might buy some land, a couple of acres, and I might actually try to grow my own food. And I don't want to do an allotment. That's not for me. Allotments have rules and regulations and all of that. I'd much rather be looking at some vague small holding. I want to be able to put minerals in the ground, natural minerals. I want to be able to have proper nutrients in there, grow a hay meadow area. I want to possibly have pigs. I want a little pond. So there's wildlife. I want to be able to grow my own vegetables, and so that they've got the nutrients and the goodness in them that we used to have traditionally. Whether one can rent in some sheep that can graze on the bit of meadowland for a while and refertilize in a natural way. These are a number of things that I want to think about, and you know, it's so difficult to put this into words. A lot of these things that's happening in the world just seems madness at the moment. With globalization, everything is becoming, I mean, I put the name Blandscape out there. We seem to be quite happy to make everything quite bland. The diversity that we used to have, the landscape with lots and lots of wildlife and all those things. For 12,000 years we've had all this, and yet in 80 years we've managed to sort of, this is what gets me, it's in one person's lifetime, and people don't seem to sort of grasp this. They just think, oh, Richard, you're just talking old rubbish. Especially younger people, millennials, and people who know no different. But I've still got one foot in the old ways. I remember the hay meadows. I remember the mixed farming. I remember food tasting so much better than it does now. And all this processed food and all of this stuff that is so devoid of any goodness. And yet food and the landscape is so important to us, and I just feel that I'm beginning to change my outlook on what's essential to life. So I'm just going through this weird exploration of where I am in the world and where I want to explore. I'm still going to try and get out to heritage, landscape and nature, of course. But I am investigating this potential of growing our own food and trying to understand that primeval thing that's in me, the traditional thing. I mean, you know, that we have all this political nonsense going on at the moment with people wanting to pull down statues and rewriting history and taking important figures like Churchill out of the history books. There's this sort of dumbing down that's going on all around us, and I just find this very odd, and people are just going along with it. People don't seem to be able to critically think for themselves. I bang on about this in my live show. They're sitting and watching the television or YouTube videos, and they're letting other people do the thinking for them, and they're just letting that rise over them instead of thinking for themselves. And I'm now beginning to feel how important the earth and the elements and nutrition and minerals and growing your own stuff is, you know, you could say it's a bit of an epiphany. I don't know. But the more I read, the more it influences you and changes your life. And I would certainly recommend looking at these things and thinking about them. You don't have to do them, of course, but thinking, so important. Anyway, so this Bald Explorer episode, very different from the others, and I banged on a little bit too long about all this stuff, but it's just an area that's fascinating me at the moment. And when I go out, and you'll see me, I'm very much aware of our roots, and I want to try and, you know, save those meadows, save the mixed farming, bring back all the wonderful diversity of life and thinking, and turn this country back into what it was again, and get rid of this blandosphere that we seem to have got into. Anyway, if you have enjoyed, or any of this has resonated with you, do give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that. Thank you for watching this video. I just needed to get that off my chest. No doubt, if the weather is good tomorrow, I should be out and about and get that fresh air and, you know, return to normal. Take care. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.